Hello folks and welcome back. In this presentation, I just want to go over the Allodial Title for Private Conveyance technology that I've utilized with success now on two vehicles, one of which was in the UK, the other one was here in Australia, and I've just sent off a third pack to claim Allodial Title for my newest car here in Australia. So I'm going to go through the complete pack that I've just had sent off. I've got scanned in that I'm ready to implement after I think a week or 2 weeks. Once I get confirmation that it has been delivered, I'm going to assign my private plates that I've ordered online, slap it onto the vehicle, print off a copy of this that we're going to go through these documents, stick it in the glove box, and yeah, I will be basically good to go, removing that piece of collateral from the bankrupt public debtor jurisdiction and into the private common law of the land. Okay, so as we go through this, it should hopefully kind of speak for itself, the power when using the pen and sending in these notifications, and obviously keeping immaculate records of everything we do and having everything set up with our estate, which is kind of what this more advanced aspect of doing these things encapsulates with what I teach on the course in regards to making sure that you have at least your security agreement set up, okay, where you're basically captured the strawman as well as the surname. So I believe they're two separate entities and coming in as our born identity, right, which is just our given name. You perfected that on the UCC and or the PPSR, okay, both depending on where you are. Highly recommend getting a UCC done if you're still in a place like Canada, Australia, New Zealand that has the PPSR Personal Property Securities Register as well. If you're outside of those countries, UK, US, just use the UCC, that is fine. In order to perfect a security agreement, you must display it publicly somewhere, and that's what these platforms provide in order to satisfy securities law. So that's what we're doing there. That's why it's very important. And then you need to issue your own indemnity and set off bonds, and also assign that on the UCC and PPSR as well. Need knowledge of the post-road mechanics, okay, self-registration, knowledge of the situation we're in, obviously with the bankruptcy, the strawman, ens legis, government created fiction, which is our birth certificate, okay, token piece of Monopoly board game that allows us to contract within their system, and, you know, good understanding of contract law. Well, you know, everything is contract, everything is trust, and through trust, which is what formulates a contract, you get consent with, you know, through offer, acceptance, agreement, consent. And obviously due to the colorable law system that we're in, no thanks to the colorable money now that we're dealing with, the fiat debt notes and the colorable titles that are being transferred as a result of that, they had to obviously come up with the colorable law system, which was the UCC, in order to govern those kind of colorable exchanges and transactions of title. Okay, and so the UCC is basically where we get our remedy in regards to also defining what formulates a contract under this new jurisdiction, these waters we're swimming in. And through that, it's obviously a lot more loose, the definitions in regards to what can formulate an agreement. And this is what we weaponize in regards to silent acquiescent admission when sending in our notices of everything we wish to achieve and do in our lives through our sovereign estate. Okay, that through silence we can get a yes from them. And also, yeah, keeping immaculate records. Okay, so this, going through this system of reclaiming a Allodial Title for private conveyance implies that you have all of this, okay, set up and are well aware and knowledgeable and educated in these main topics. Okay, and so just to show you, because for those watching on YouTube, I'm going to have this posted on YouTube, but also on my private Sovereignty Masterclass course, where those members are able to access the templates and the documents. Okay, for a small donation, you can come on board. Anyone who's watching this in YouTube and the public, you can come on board in the private, make a small donation and gain access to these templates. Otherwise, if you're watching this on YouTube, you're only going to be able to see the video and not have any downloads, because I've got to protect myself. And if you are in the public watching this, you're obviously going to see a lot of the documents. There's nothing stopping you typing this out yourself. But for a small donation, you can actually come on board into the private and gain access to these templates. Okay, so here you can see the security agreement. That is the number one most powerful document in this current commercial setup that we have, which is basically through us talking through the strawman, that the strawman is going to pledge all of its assets, okay, on the public side in this commercial system to us on the private side as a secure party creditor okay, which is identified by our given name, which is our born identity, as well as the surname, okay? And I go through this in other videos, so I'm not going to go through this in much detail here, but there is a bifurcated title set up in the name of the father, and that is even split into two, because we have the strawman, which is kind of like the son or the daughter, the father, obviously representing the crown, and then you have the living man, principal, sovereign beneficiary. Okay, so the strawman ends up being the Holy Ghost. The father is the surname, securities trust, the crown, and the son or daughter, the living heir, is us, which is just our born identity. Okay, that's what our parents gave to us. And through these hidden contracts and procedures involving the government and the placenta, this is what is established. Okay, so very powerful document, often overlooked and misunderstood, I feel like, in this journey. I know, because I was there, and it doesn't really have to be that complicated. It just needs to show at least two parties, and because of this setup where we have all these corporate fictions and the real individuals acting as agents for and surety for, to step up to imbue it with life in order for it to actually be able to do anything within the commercial realm, we can use that to our advantage when stepping in and writing documents as if we were our straw man and or the crown surname. Okay, and so we can then formulate this agreement by signing PP on behalf of the straw man and the surname, and obviously autograph the document in our own private living capacity, thumbprints, and we have our agreement. Okay, and we give, like anything, even with the silent acquiescence and admission, we can gain a yes from the straw man when formulating documents that way. Okay, so it's a very powerful concept, this, but this is basically effectively pledging anything and everything that we acquire in this commercial setup of the Monopoly board game, which is our straw man, which is, you need that in order to have a token piece in this commercial arena. Like playing Monopoly, you need to have a token that identifies you within the game, that we can use this now and have this set up without being surety and being indemnified, and making sure that all the property that we acquire is otherwise protected against any other parties' liens, and obviously with the whole setup, it being secured for collateral for all the debt, which is what taxes are used to raise the revenue to provide a stream to a cash flow to pay off that principal and interest on that debt owed to the central bankers, international creditors, which obviously creates on an account a zero balance. So it's just a way and means in which to start securing and protecting the estate. And this also puts a lien on the securities trust, which stops them double dipping, stops them embezzling in the estate. Okay, and it's kind of like a really good status correction and a notice to these guys, especially when you have this perfected on the UCC and the PPSR, that you know what you are doing. Okay, you have full control now as the first in line, first in time, secured party creditor to your token piece on the Monopoly board game, which is your straw man. And then with that third party father surname, you can have that as surety. Okay, which is otherwise what I did and use on the bonds. Okay, so those on the course, they have access to this template, which I'll also put another link down below this video in this most advanced module. And you can see there PP. I mean, even within the security agreement, you have in itself an indemnity bond, okay, which is here, as you can see. And then basically everything under Schedule A is listed that is pledged to us from the straw man. Okay, so we have full control now as a creditor, with the straw man being the debtor. And so whatever the straw man, if anyone else comes in and liens or presents, we're first in line, first in time to all of the assets and the wealth that the straw man has accumulated in its name, obviously by us stepping in, acting as agent for, as a mask, as a token piece for, it is protected. Okay, and so from the Schedule A, whatever it is you acquire, I mean, you can have this explanation being quite generic, which covers all assets, all property, tangible and intangible. So that then saves you from having to update everything and anything that comes in and out of your estate. For example, if you buy a new car, sell an old car, you can just have that reflected as a broad catch-all phrase in regards to all property, all assets that the straw man owns or is in its name, okay, is automatically adjusted for and accounted for under Schedule A as part of the security agreement and pledged to me, Alexander George, in the private secured party creditor. Okay, likewise of houses. All right, so it's just, again, another way of being able to speed up the process of administering your estate. There's the indemnity bond, and this is how we sign. Okay, so that's the first implication of having your estate set up before trying this out, the Allodial Title for private conveyance. Second, and obviously having that perfected on the PPSR, which I'll just show you an example of, which I may go through just for those who are in Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. I might just hop onto the website and just show you exactly how to navigate that, which is quite easy. But if you kind of backwards engineer these documents that I put together, which I worked out myself, again, it's not that hard. You can, put in the correct filings, which is referencing obviously all the correct numbers when it comes to your security agreement, right? As you can see here, that'll be the same number as this up here. All right, so that's obviously keeping track of everything that you're doing, especially when it comes to the post, being the postmaster general if you're in a state. Because remember, the seat behind every government is the post office, who governs every trust, treaty, contract, and money on the planet, the most powerful institution on the earth, and it is neutral, just like Switzerland is. That's where it's located, UPU in Switzerland, because you need that agency of communications to begin with to even formulate these governments in the first place, and to manage the communications, that obviously formulate the contracts, to form other companies, etc., etc. So here is the indemnity bond for, yes, this is the indemnity bond issued to the Treasury. As you can see here, this is what I have in the back of my birth certificate. Okay, very succinct. And then that is perfected on the PPSR, signed on the PPSR, using my original registration, which is the one that is otherwise referencing my security agreement. As you can see here, quite easy to do, just slightly different to the UCC, but it's pretty much the same. Just got to use a little bit of logic and see what they're defining a debtor as, okay, which is a grantor in this instance. And so yeah, once you have that sent in and perfected means obviously you've got to file in on the UCC or PPSR, which is controlling that security and assigning that security, and you've waited 30 days for them to rebut, then that effectively has cured and it's on an account that you can then use. Okay, and this is obviously the first thing that we need to do in regards to understanding the international bankruptcy we're in. In international bankruptcy, everything has to be licensed, bonded, and insured. Okay, so you can see here, also got the UCC. This is assigning Treasury and all successors and heirs in office, etc., etc. And then obviously have all the proof of delivery, proof of sending, the post, mail receipt, date, and delivery. Okay, so that's very important. So that guys, is just the prerequisites of what you need, bare minimum, to then start this process of claiming a allodial title for private conveyance. Okay, so after going through this, I'm just going to read through the whole document. It's going to explain itself. I then might go into breaking down, the PPSR filings and the UCC filings a little bit more. Okay, so we'll just see how we do for time. All right, so as you've been introduced in previous videos, this is my template. Okay, so we have a peaceful and lawful notice. All right, and then in the respondents, I put in all agents, administrators, ministers, accountable officers, accounting officers, directors, CEOs, significant controllers, and all successors in office. Okay, this is just me having a bit of tongue-in-cheek, a bit of fun. Office is obviously phonetically similar to office, which is where these guys work, and office in Greek means snake, and it's kind of like the basis of this whole system. It's very snake, it's very duplicitous, right? These guys take an oath of secrecy, they have liability insurance, and they're licensed to lie to the individuals, whilst double dipping in the Selig KV trust and having one foot in the private realm of the private side of the ledger, whilst the other one is kind of like on the public side, given license to pirate and extort, all the bankrupt, ignorant debtors, uneducated debtors out here, willingly stepping up as surety, or unknowingly stepping up as surety for this bastard Strawman. Okay, so we have 4 agencies I went for here in Australia. We've got the Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, Communications and the Arts. We have the Australian Federal Police, ANPR Division, Department of Transport and Main Roads, and Department of Home Affairs. Okay, now this is just an example. This is just what I've done. If you feel like based on where you are, you want to notify more or less agencies, go ahead and do it. Okay, I'm just providing you a template of what I've done and so far I've had success with. All right, so just draw inspiration from this as best you can. And remember guys, I put this document together myself off the back of my own knowledge, off the back of my own hand effectively. So you must get to a point that even if you are copying most of this, you need to know exactly what it is you're doing and what this document is saying in order to have confidence when going through with this. Okay, so it's very, very important that your substance must match substance over form and behaviour must match your assertions. Okay, there's no shortcuts to becoming sovereign and learning how to play the game and manage and protect your own estate. You must put in the work and learn and educate yourself, and then you embody the knowledge, and then that will really show when you're thinking about, okay, I want to put a document together to claim allodial title to this private conveyance, etc., etc. Okay, and then stipulate my terms and conditions. All right, so just draw inspiration, guys, and hopefully, like I said, if you're still a bit lost, just keep going over it. That's why I put the course together, and hopefully through my resources and materials, you can get up to where I am, and that's the whole goal. So we can walk side by side, and you guys can have fun as well as I am, and be confident in doing so in regards to freeing up your life a little bit. So I have here, dear ladies and gentlemen, okay, warm and cordial welcome to you and all your staff. I hope this letter finds you and all your staff fit and healthy and fit for purpose. I'm writing to communicate an effective lawful notice to all of the institutions, agents and technologies involved in registering and policing the vessels upon the sea lanes, motorways, ports, gates, parking spaces and tolls of the bankrupt Federal Corporation of Australia to assert allodial title ownership of the private conveyance registered under the document of allodial title registration number for vessel VIN number using private non-commercial plate identifier number in order for the National International Database of Operations to be amended accordingly to accommodate this transfer of conveyance from the commercial public realm into the non-commercial private realm jurisdiction of the common law of the land and sovereign seal of my estate, whereupon innocence is assumed and presumed until evidence of a valid lawful crime against another living being or their property is provided to prove to the contrary. This means no law or enforcement can be propagated against the proprietor or private conveyance itself, unless there is someone in their private capacity coming forward as an injured party with evidence of injury, loss or harm done to themselves or their property, signed under penalties of perjury under full commercial liability. I've attached the following documents as evidence and for the record. So I have Exhibit A, document of allodial title. Exhibit B, private indemnity bond worth 100 million for comprehensive insurance of private conveyance upon the sea lanes, motorways, highways, roads with PPSR filing. Exhibit C, private registered indemnity bond. And Exhibit D, schedule fee. Okay, if you recollect, in my BMW claim only had 3 exhibits. The only reason why I put with this one, my latest one, is because this bond is the one that's held at the Treasury. And this bond, in fact, is one that I issued to a private insurance firm called Alliance. All right, so if you got the private indemnity bond issued at the Treasury, that will suffice. Okay, but I was kind of playing around, wanted to test out different things, and I issued that bond with Alliance, and they never sent it back. So under the contract, with the notification notice I sent in the bond indenture, they've accepted that bond. So I effectively got two insurances now, with one's with a private company, Alliance, and then the other one's with the Treasury, which is quite interesting. So yeah, just you can ignore that, and then in the future, just to, again, save on ink and paper, you just use your private indemnity bond held at the Treasury when you have that sent in. All right, to continue, so this completely removes the private conveyance, res, and the operator/proprietor of the private conveyance from any joinder to the Australian Federal Corporation and all subsidiaries of de facto corporate governance under bankruptcy, and likewise their creditors, and the international maritime amity jurisdiction in operation, and removes the presumption of guilt, agreement, and performance that may be construed under the codes, statutes, rules, acts, regulations, and or legislation, etc., nunc pro tunc, ab initio, which basically just means now for then and from the beginning. Furthermore, the prior commercial license plate assigned to the conveyance, along with the registered owner, is hereby rescinded unequivocally, but may be retained for the record as and when this private conveyance may be sold / transferred back into the public registry to a new registered keeper if they are to engage the conveyance in commerce upon the bankrupt sea lanes / motorways that require a license to operate. I'll just put here in a little box from the LexisNexis Concise Australian Legal Dictionary 6th edition. License means a permit to do something that would otherwise be unlawful. So that's them telling us exactly what licensing means. So as I'm not conducting commerce on the roads and I'm operating lawfully, a license is not required to be shown. My business is strictly private and confidential. However, if any identification is required, then the following identification will be used on the record for the record when traveling, whether with a private conveyance or personally within my own body vessel. So I continue, due to the laws of bankruptcy and how everything in bankruptcy is bonded, licensed and insured. The private conveyance also has insurance by way of a private registered bond for set off, held at Alliance Australia Limited to the value of 100 million, should it be needed in the event of covering any claim due to an accident to any other being and or their property, as well as any state property and damage to the vehicle and the insured, with bond registration number and assigned by the PPSR with the filing number. Alliance has full rights of subrogation. Moreover, I have another indemnity bond held at the Australian Treasury to cover the same with bond registration number and PPSR number, and the Australian Treasury has full rights of subrogation. So in addition, as I possess the original eternal crown grant imbued in my DNA as a sovereign prince of the true eternal first field intelligence of my creator, I have my own sovereign court, records and seal as witnessed by the UPU through registered postal records. I reserve my unalienable and customary rights as a sovereign, retaining allodial title ownership to be exempt from fines, fees, levies, taxes and tolls, and am operating as a private non-resident, non-domiciled foreign national to the bankrupt corporation of Australia and any and all subsidiary states and departments therein that only exist as mere ink on paper, thought up in the minds of men and women. This claim also applies to the ens legis commercial vessel created under the birth registration number bearing the name, my strawman, full name, and the surname, now captured under the sovereign hand and seal of myself, Alexander George. You can put in the Kingdom of Middleditch, your surname. It doesn't really matter. When we, obviously with the language technologies, the quantum grammar, David Wynne Miller knew that there was a bifurcated title. That's why he always showed and taught that you have your colon, given name, colon, surname. So you're separating the two facts. So he understood that there was a bifurcated title, right? There's at least two different entities there, even though there's three, but through the correct grammar, you're showing that separation. Okay, and obviously writing it like this, you're also showing the separation, okay? Because the estate is otherwise what we're claiming, which is part of the crown, to be acting on behalf of, which again is just a piece of paper. That's a piece of paper within their system. The real land is just our bodies, okay? And through the Montevideo Convention, 1933, when I go through that module, I show you how we can actually claim our sovereign estate given the requirements with, I think, the 4 or 5 stipulations that are needed, like population of 1, which is obviously us, the ability to contract, yes, and a few other things. You know, there's actually like land, we're made of the minerals of the earth, so we're movable land, etc. So we tick all the boxes that we can just through our own being with these documents claim a sovereign nation state. So if any charges should mistakenly arise, all taxes, fines, fees and levies charged are to be waived / set off against my limited exemption prepaid account to adjust, settle and close the accounts / charge at the Treasury who are in possession of any unlimited indemnity, who are in possession of my unlimited indemnity and set off bonds. Please can you update the automatic number plate recognition system, ANPR, database to reflect the new change of title and jurisdiction this conveyance is now under governance to ensure smooth, unobstructed travel. Failure to do so will subject any agent or agency, when trying to enforce commercial codes upon a private sovereign conveyance, to the fee schedule attached in Exhibit D. All withdrawal of consent is enforced as per the Privacy Act 1988 for accessing and storing any recordings of this private conveyance and its proprietor. Whereupon, only in the event of an accident or investigation where there is a claim from an injured party and insurmountable proof/evidence of a crime as brought forward by an injured party in their private capacity under penalties of perjury, can the data be accessed to help in any investigations. Moreover, the proprietor of the private conveyance will respect the rules of the road in order to allow commerce to function efficiently, and will cooperate with any agent/agencies should there be a need to do so in any investigation. The private conveyance is registered under the hand and seal of a peaceable estate who acts in good honour, good faith, fair dealing, with clean hands and equity, and God as its witness, and is not a terrorist or any enemy of any state, so please act accordingly. Please state any protests to the claims made above within 14 days via recorded post to the suite address, with the stipulation that respondent's non-response will be accepted as silent acquiescent admission. Got to give props and thanks to Bill Turner for that sentence. Thank you, Bill, if you're watching this. But yeah, learned some very good things from Bill, so appreciate his contributions. This mail item is held under the Court of Office of Records for myself. Okay, all correspondences regarding this matter will be held on record and used as evidence to appease, settle, stop, and correct any claim or counterclaim. The author of this document is myself. Okay, just again. And then signing as myself with the thumbprint, and then PP, the surname, showing the separation there. All rights, powers, privileges, indemnities, immunities, whether actual, contingent, inherent, or prospective, reserved, UCC 1308. So that's page 3 of 30. And so all the rest are basically exhibits. Okay, so this is the actual document of allodial title. Again, issued by my estate to my estate, closing the loop on the postal road mechanics. Self-registration, regis means title and rights, and the crown. Okay, anything you register away from yourself to another agency, you're given title and rights away to. When you register things to yourself, I use a digital mailbox address. I operate everything out of that digital mailbox address wherever I am locally on the planet to manage my Strawman estate. That has a lot of power. When you register things to yourself, you close the loop and you invite the UPU as witness to prove that you have sent that, and that generates a serial number that you can then use for these documents, which is exactly what these guys do in government. Okay, so you got the document of allodial title and allodial proprietorship for private conveyance, exempt from levy. Venue, International Universal Postal Union. Okay, then we have my name, Alexander George, Middleditch Estate, a sovereign nation state. Jurisdiction, common law of the dry land absent from the seas /C. For private non-commercial transit travel. And then the perpetual claim number is otherwise, I think, this number that I use to send this allodial title to my estate, my mailbox. Security agreement number, it's the same as my other security agreement. And then you have the UCC1 financing statement, okay, which is perfecting that security agreement, and the PPSR filing because I'm here in Australia also. And then simply allodial title owner details, registration number, again, the same. Plate identifier, okay, this is the private plate that otherwise got issued from Unreal Plates. Okay, as you can see, here's the invoice that I have received. All right, so wherever you are, based on where you are, just simply hop online and you should be able to find a private plate, custom plate maker, okay, and have some printed off and sent out to you. And then obviously there's my mailbox address, date of transfer, 1st of November, make, slight description of the car, color, model, cylinder capacity, number of seats, and the VIN number. Okay, then again, signed as registered general to my own sovereign nation state. So anything and everything that these governments do and have offices of and agents for, we can step in and don that hat within our own estate. That's the power of what we're doing. We can, with the population of 1, with our sovereign nation state setting up what we set up, we can be anything and everything in order to appease the nation. And in this instance, registered general. Again, I've got left thumbprint, right thumbprint. I drew that inspiration from basically the Committee of 300 document with how Ferdinand E. Marcos was signing these documents, which is quite interesting. Want to be enough. Again, these become very trivial at the end of the day when you get to this advanced level. remember at the beginning I was focused on, oh my God, what stamp should I use and how should I sign this? When in reality, with what I approved for my car insurance bond, that was so poor and I was so wet behind the ears. But because I sent it and it was very clear the substance of what was being said in the bond indenture, and I had proof that that was sent, through the postal roads, I was able to rebut or rescind or set off them trying to fine me and fee me, basically take points off my license and fine me for not having so-called insurance. Okay, so yeah, that goes to show that, a lot of this kind of stuff is very trivial. It's the trimmings. What's important is the meat and bones of what's being said in the body of the text, which is, basically the indenture, the stipulations, the terms and conditions. Everything else is kind of like superfluous, in my opinion, but it does help appearing professional and making sure that you are doing your headers and footers correctly and you are autographing correctly and having your estate seal and stuff like this. Okay, it does make a little bit of a difference. What I'm just trying to hit home is it's not the be all and end all. The most important is just the meats and bones of what's being said within the body, the substance of the document itself. And so there we have the mail receipt. Because it's new, I think it has actually been received. I'll update this PDF and put in the delivery notice confirmation on their website as like a screenshot. And then here we have Exhibit B, which is the private indemnity bond. Okay, which I'll just quickly read through. Again, this notice is being sent to your attention by written communications for the following reasons and information. As principal, secured party and creditor, I hereby issue a private bond for set off to the value of 100 million Australian dollars as security to settle any claim of liability in the event of an incident involving motor vehicles requiring compensation from another living soul. Please find the private bond for set off and the terms and conditions attached for your record and safekeeping. And then this is exactly pretty much the same text that I used otherwise in my first original surety bond car insurance case, okay, where I had successful discharge of the fine and the points of my license for so-called not having insurance. And it states, due to the very fact that securities have now replaced substance as collateral for debt, due to the bankruptcy of the Australian Federal Corporation to the IMF, including all subsidiaries and government in their private capacity, and that there is no money in circulation of any value in which to pay only debt, and all debt is created on paper, therefore all debt can be discharged and issued on paper, I exercise my right and unlimited exemption to use this negotiable instrument to ensure that myself, secured party to my strawman, and any and all personal vehicles owned by myself involved in any incident is hereby covered by this bond, secured by the corresponding account held at the Treasury to the value of 100 million Australian dollars. Okay, so even there I made a typo. Even though this was going to the private office of Alliance, this was the template I used to already send to the Treasury. So there you go. It doesn't have to be perfect. Please feel free to create a policy of comprehensive cover that reflects this bond order and send to the suite address listed above. Please state your non-acceptance by written communications by returning this bond to the suite address listed above within 30 days of the registered mail receipt of delivery. To make it clear, Agent Wolfgang Dietschel's non-response will be accepted as silent acquiescence and admission to set up a comprehensive motor insurance policy with Alliance Australia Limited, backed by this bond and security. If the terms of the policy is accepted, then I look forward to doing future business with you and your firm in relation to other insurance products. Yours sincerely, without ill will, vexation, or frivolity, by the order of, Okay, and so there we have the actual bond that I printed on the back of the birth certificate. See how I signed it off with the three parties. So my born identity is the principal. We have witness 2, which is the surname crowned, PP, and then witness 1 is the strawman, Holy Ghost. There's the front of it. There's the PPSR attached to the original filing, which is where my security agreement is perfected. And then simply I just put in the verbiage. This is a notice of adding 100 million Australian dollars private bond for set off for comprehensive motor insurance with bond number and registered postal number held and assigned to CFO Wolfgang Dietschel and all successors at Allianz Australia for the benefit of myself and the strawman and all registered vehicles owned in these names. Proceeds, yes, full comprehensive cover, compensation and settlement of all claims by Allianz Australia up to the value of 100 million for secured party and strawman in the event of an incident on the roads when using motor vehicles. Okay, quite easy. This is my secured party details. So here I've actually put in within the PPSR system, I'm being identified as just my given name, and I put in as my surname, the actual number sequence, which is on my birth extract, which is basically the same but abbreviated as my birth certificate registration number, okay, which is 895249. The birth certificate is 1989, so otherwise demarcates the year. And then this number here, 5249, was the number of me being a baby being birthed into their corporation in the month of February 26th, 1989. I was the 5249th sucker. I was blank slated and fucking pledged as collateral for all the national fraudulent debt, okay, due to my parents not being educated. But that's all coming to an end, and we've come here to shift the paradigm. And here's just the mail receipt, proof of delivery. Again, same for the Australian Treasury indemnity bond. As you can see, very similar verbiage that I used on my initial car insurance surety bond. Okay, but in addition, with the cover letter, I put in more of the text that I've got my hands on these bonds. Okay, that otherwise I couldn't fit in one page on the original order. Okay, which otherwise just highlights more stipulations. Okay, so in addition, the bond shall be used to underwrite, insure, and indemnify said account holders and account against any and all pre-existing current and future liabilities through and by offsetting against this bond dollar for dollar all such obligations which shall include but not be limited to any and all underlying and related accounts, agencies, bonds, and persons, public or private, whether named or unnamed, for all aiding, abetting, acts, actions, whether civil or criminal, accusations, acts of God, advisements, affidavits, affirmations, abscondings, amnesty actions, arrests, activity, attestations, accidents, appointments, accord, agreements, bills, breaches of contract, bonds, bankruptcy actions, barrings, brokerings, captures, cases, causes, charges, claims, codes, collections, commercial actions, common law actions, complaints, commitments, communications, whether written, oral, or electronic, with or without notice, compensatory damages, costs, criminal debts, contracts, conspiracy, counterfeiting, condemnings, contributing, conveyance, commissions, damages, databases, debts, decisions, defaults, deficits, deficiencies, dockets, documents, encumbrances, equity actions, errors, executions, elections, expenses, fees, files, findings, fines, forfeitures, frauds, hearings, holdings, informations, indictments, injuries, instruments, incursions, incarcerations, investigations, interrogations, in rem proceedings, impeachments, judgments, launderings, levies, liabilities, liens, losses, letters, licenses, manufacturing, margins, negligences, notices, obligations, obligations of contract, obligations of performance, orders, options, penal actions, penal debts, penal sums, pronouncements, probations, parole, prizes, processes, profits, regulations, reimbursements, restitution, recidivism, recklessness, recoupments, rules, recoveries, recriminations, regulations, regulatory actions, rescissions, rebuttals, reprisals, recourses, remedies, remediation, statements, statutes, seizure, subrogations, supervision, summoning, services, taxes, testimony, true bills, takings, transactions, utterings, violations, and warrants or other named or unnamed liabilities. Okay, so within that category, I would say for car insurance, absolutely you'll be fine. So it's an indemnity bond, whatever your strawman or yourself get involved with within the seas of commerce, whether it's in your car as well for motor insurance, that would more than cover that. Okay, so I feel like the generic one that we send with the templates to the Treasury will more than be sufficient to put in this pack to cover you with any accident and be valid proof of insurance. Just make sure you stipulate that in the original letter that you send to all these agencies, right? To make sure that that is proof of insurance. And you have got indemnity set up with the Treasury in that instance. Okay, so just to go on to finish off, the Treasury and all succeeding treasurers agree that this cover letter and bond can be used as evidence of valid insurance for all purposes relating to the principal and debtor's public and private life actions and property, wherein the debtor indemnifies principal through this bond and in security agreement. Okay, again, referencing the original security agreement, as well as the surname indemnifying debtor and principal for any claims, dishonour on their part when operating the vessel within the public and private realms. This indemnity bond shall also act as security for any issuance of permit bonds and shall also cover home, health. See, there you go. So even within this, I've already put in the text to stipulate that this is, good to cover even conventional, motor insurance, even home insurance, health, car, boat, airplane, helicopter, and travel insurance for the principal and debtor. The principal need only present claims and bills to the Treasury for set off, which also has on account my set off bond sent under registered postal number and bond reference number. that can also be used to settle any claim and to subrogate the rights and defences of the principal and or debtor to that of the Treasury to settle and close all accounts bearing claims against us who has permission to act in right of the surname and or the Strawman, Holy Ghost token piece. So you agree that referencing this bond number and registered post number is evidence of a comprehensive policy cover, an account held with the Treasury that allows the Treasurer the rights of subrogation in order to cover and settle any claim up to any amount unless otherwise stated with reference to the policy and corresponding numbers sent to the suite address above. Any objections to this in the bond order, then please express in writing on the registered post confirmation delivery to the address above within 30 days as stipulated on the bond order. Thank you for your time and service, and I look forward to doing business with you in the future. Silence is acquiescence. Yours sincerely, without ill will, vexation, and frivolity. And there's the three parties again, how I sign off the documents. Okay. And there is the indemnity bond. And again, the PPSR. Okay, so it's pretty much exactly the same carbon copy. The whole process is just rinse and repeat when issuing securities, controlling your securities and assigning your securities, and then sending in through the post-road mechanics and under silent acquiescent emission, you get your consent. So this is pretty much the same, again, referencing the original security agreement that I referenced here, as you can see, which is where my security agreement has been perfected. And then this is just adding. So you, through the PPSR, you set up another filing, which has its own unique registration, but it's part of an earlier PPSR registration number that it falls under, like the umbrella filing. Okay, the chief is the original security agreement, then this falls under it, but it's assigned a new registration number that you can reference. Okay, and it's just otherwise going through exactly the same. So proceed, yes, all future claims, acceptances, endorsements, bills of sale, insurances, policies, endowments, annuities, accounts, credits, discharges, set-offs, settlements, adjustments, and closure of accounts. The PPSR is slightly different to the UCC in that you're only limited in regards to how much text you can put into the collateral. Okay, so just had to trim things a little bit and just stick to the main points. You know, this is a notice of adding an unlimited set-off bond, an unlimited indemnity bond secured against the birth certificate, prepaid and limited exemption account, and held and assigned to the Australian Treasury, and all successes in office for insurance and set-off claims are stipulated in the bond agreements. So I got my set-off bond reference number and registered postal number, as well as the indemnity bond number and registered postal number. So I did both bonds at the same time with the filing, right? Two birds, one stone. And then, yeah, there's my mailbox address. Everything's operating through my mailbox address. That's effectively where my Strawman has been venued. And then this one is another filing that I did, extending the grantor, the debtor list to be the International Monetary Fund, World Bank, Bank of International Settlements, BlackRock, Vanguard, Australian Treasury, Computer Share, and DTCC. Basically, I was thinking like any agencies that might be dealing with circulating these bonds that I've issued to the Treasury. Okay, and then description. This is a notice of adding the bank account held within the foreign Sedit KB Trust, identified by my Strawman, birth certificate registration number, birth certificate, by any and all institutions involved, which reflects the debt owed to the secured party by virtue of the money on account standing to my credit and my limited exemption under this banker-customer relationship, otherwise administered by the Treasury et al. For my benefit, to use for set-off of accounts in the public. I'll just put in like, yes, proceed, yes, all money and future monies standing to my credit on the account as a chosen action. And there is my secured party details. And then here's the UCC amendment, which is a UCC 3, which is adding collateral to the original, or this is an assignment. Okay, so I'm assigning to the original financing statement number. So the UCC is slightly different, but it's a similar process. It's all securities law. It's just same, but different, right? Like I said, if you spend a bit of time like I did, I worked it all out myself. It's not actually that difficult. You just got to use your own intuition. If you're not sure of something, Google it, look up the definitions, and if you spend time long enough on their platforms, you'll work it out. You'll be able to translate your UCC filing of the same security agreement onto the PPSR, whether you're in New Zealand, Canada, Australia, because again, those websites will be slightly different too. And I think it's a very good practice for you guys to be able to actually, at this level, once you have your security agreement set up and obviously, you know, all the bonds sent out and you want to then perfect those securities on the PPSR and the UCC, you should be able to walk through that process. And otherwise, under the advanced Treasury pack module, which is obviously all the documents I've got my hands on from PJP, that proved to be a very useful practice for me to learn how to issue and control my securities and go about doing these more advanced aspects of these filings. Okay, so that will serve this purpose as stepping stones, to get up to the next level, next rung in the ladder. So here again, very similar, but just assigning this time the bond, which I did on the UCC, to the Secretary of the Treasury here in Australia. And it just says here, this is a notice for assigning an unlimited set off bond order, as well as an unlimited indemnity bond order to Dr. Stephen Kennedy, doing business as Secretary for the Treasury of Australia, in all successors and heirs in office, as well as the Australian Treasury for the insurance and set off of any debt, and all claims as stipulated in the bond orders. And I reference the bond orders, registered postal numbers, the set off bond and indemnity bond. And this assignment is assigned in trust and in the principal agent relationship. The Treasury shall also be treated as secured parties bank, and the secretary, the banker in this banker-customer relationship, where the secured party is both the customer and beneficiary to the accounts. The Treasury/security secretary may act in a trustee capacity to manage and settle accounts held in other banks for the benefit of the secured party with those bankers held under constructive trust and bound to serve the best interest of the beneficiary, who is the secured party, myself, just my given name. Okay, so pretty straightforward. Advanced Treasury pack introduces folks to assigning, and adding collateral was just super easy as well. It's just another UCT3 if you wish to add collateral. But like I said, which I think is worth doing with the indemnity bond and set off bond at least. Yeah, because they're important securities. So you want them listed as unique filings and amendments of added collateral to your original security agreement, perfected filing. Everything else with like conveyances and stuff can just be held generically under the catch-all descriptor of the Schedule A in the security agreement, as I said before. It just saves you time then of having to be like listing every single change of any assets going in and out of your account. You just have a catch-all. And I think I've even got with my security agreement, there's the template. Yeah, so anything you do want to change. So this is my updated security agreement. I'll just put in all personal and real property. Titles claimed by the debtor in bankruptcy for equitable use. Debtor grants permission for secured party to claim property in Allodial after any such property is acquired to serve as the promised transmitting utility from public to private. Okay, so I just stipulated that and added that in to my original, which is kind of like a catch-all. So that's what I'm trying to say. It's so easy. So you can just, once you get the basics of like, all your bank accounts, all your documents, you don't even have to list them and be that specific. You can just, put in all property, including all tangible, intangible, chosen actions like bank accounts, etc. Okay, obviously, DNA, fingerprints, biological property, very important. But I'd say that suffices, and so from there on out, your whole estate is protected. Anything that gets bought that you claim in this commercial arena through your strawman automatically goes in Schedule A under the security agreement, which is completely protected. And then if you want to do the process of claiming a Allodial title on it, you can. Okay. So let's go back. So we're almost finished. So the last exhibit is just a schedule fee. Again, this kind of adds a little bit more defense in case, if in the unlikely event you're stopped by a policy enforcer, a pirate that's out there, and he's wondering, why have you got private plates and, what's going on that's not on the system? You can, obviously educate them. But like I said, I've not had that because, if it's done properly, this reaches all the right relevant agencies and they do amend the records behind the scenes, it's my belief. So I've not had any issues, and I've gone past ANPR cameras, gone through tunnels that you need to pay tolls with, over bridges where you need to pay tolls. They got automated ANPR cameras absolutely everywhere, and I've just been scot-free. I've had no issues. Okay, so this is why you always put in, these divisions. You let the police know, Department of Transport, main roads. So the head HQ of the Federal Police, ANPR division, you should not have an issue. Okay, but if you do, you let them know that in the event that there is an error in the administration of enforcing their penal codes on a sovereign and its property that is no longer pledged as collateral for all the debt and bankruptcy, then there will be repercussions, or there can be repercussions, and this is the fee schedule, right? And so you just list it. It's pretty generic. Again, this is a template I've got online through PJP's course, but it just adds more ammunition to what we're trying to do here, okay? Because you never know. You might get someone who's a bit too big for his boots or her boots, and wants to abuse their powers, even though you've done everything right on paper and they can't touch you. But I come from the place of prevention is better than cure, and hopefully if you do this right and you're setting everything before the notifications, as you can see here, the mail receipts, this is very recent, okay, 4th of November this was sent off. So over the next week I will jump online, punch in the numbers, get the confirmation delivery, and just add that as another few pages at the end of this document, and then I'll print this off and keep a copy of it in my glove box with my new car. That is now going to be moved into the private. Okay, and trust me, it's a very good feeling, because I've been doing this with my BMW for the last 16 months now, nearly 18 months, and they can't touch it. It's incredible, and I tell the story when I was even in the city, and I came back and I mistakenly parked on like a place where I shouldn't park as part of a bus stop, I think. And I came out and there was a tow truck in front of my car. And then behind my car was a city council car with like 3 city council offices on their iPad. The tow truck was kind of stood around them as well. And I just, went up to them. I said, "Oh, apologies guys, this is my car. What's going on?" And they go, what's your, what state are you registered with? We've not seen this before. What kind of plates are they? Because obviously the private plates that are printed, normally in Australia, you have what state, you have like the 3-letter abbreviation of the state it's registered with. Queensland, obviously it's QLD, but when I have the private plate sent out, there's no state identification on there. And obviously when they punch the numbers within the system, because it's not registered within their state public system, it doesn't even show up on their iPad. So they're all there scratching their heads. And obviously I start to educate them, because one of the guys said, "Oh yeah, I've heard about this before, the the private trust and stuff and the sovereignty movement." And so I kind of like explained to them, I pulled out the documents and I asked them, I was like, "Would you guys have been able to do anything with this car?" And they said, "No, because we can't initiate anything, because you're not even on the system." So that to me, again, just proves that what we're doing here is so powerful, and that these guys only have power over that which is already held in the Schedule A of the massive security agreement of this bankruptcy, where the international creditors acting through the central bank are the creditors and the governments are the debtors. And so everything that the government produces in GDP, like obviously with the cars and everything else that ends up registered within their system with the titles, is pledged as collateral for all the debt. And so that is only, so once they have control of that asset through their own assignments of titles, okay, which is all, color of title, that's where the power lies, because that title falls under their jurisdiction of the bankruptcy that they have to administer under a Chapter 10, 11, 12 bankruptcy on behalf of the creditors, where they've been captured and restructured and now serving the debt. Burn, what's the old saying? Debt is always servant to the lender, right? So it's a cunning setup, and it was otherwise, more proof of the power of this, removing collateral from the bankruptcy and into our own private estate under the common law of the land, where there is no bankrupt waters. It's all just, it's all substance-based, it's all sound, and it's all formed under equity, which is contract law. And through their own system, through how we can gain consent in contracts now, thanks to their colouring of the language and the law and the money system that they've set up with the UCC, we can get a yes from them through silent acquiescent admission. So it really is like actually not that complicated to become sovereign. I think there's just a lot of agents out there that are convoluting the truth and the real solutions for obvious reasons, to stop people actually finding the solution. And it's just a matter of, learning the bigger picture as to what's happening, learn the power of the security agreement with the different parties set up at our birth, learn the language fraud, the grammar, postal road mechanics, and then being able to put pen to paper and stipulate your own terms and conditions of whatever it is you wish to do or claim within their system, and then act honourably, intelligently, and peacefully on paper, notifying them of everything that you wish to do, and control your securities, issue and control your securities, because securities have now replaced substance as collateral for debt. All right, so I believe, obviously, at this late stage in my studies in this movement, anyone who's otherwise not teaching the UCC, and otherwise the security agreement, is a fraud, and is only going to lead you into deeper and rougher waters where you're going to have a hard lesson to work out what actually works and what doesn't. Okay, because I've had no issues. I've got tax exempt status, just again due to another peaceful and lawful notice with my tax exempt status, which is very similar to this, but just attacking the tax, which I'll probably do another video on. And again, once you have your security agreement set up, your indemnity bond sent in, you can go and do these things. Okay, and then ultimately, the difference between the indemnity bond is that that's insurance, right? So you insured your vessel, the Strawman, upon the high seas in amity. That's satisfying the amity maritime law. The set-off bonds, how that is different is if you want to go out there and try and make secure transactions and purchase things, by getting the purchase agreement or the bill of sale for something. Okay, that kind of that's the only two differences. So anything that's kind of liened or presented, whether through, fines, fees, levies, insurance claims, the indemnity bond comes in and covers you and the straw man. Whereas set-off bonds, you can go direct to trying to acquire assets. Okay, now I have tried this, but I've had no success as yet. I've not exhausted every possible method of doing it. Okay, the main one is obviously A4V, a bill of sale or purchase agreement that you pick up. Say if you walk into a dealership, you want to get the bill of sale, you basically explain to them you have a trustee's got a lot of money, but they want me to, go through getting a bill of sale because they want to train me in terms of the bills of exchanges. You just frame it however which way you want. And then you could do the A4V, referencing the bond, send to the treasurer, and hopefully, they should set off the account. The money should be found in the dealership's account. You should then be sent Allodial Title to your mailbox address, which is confirmation that the treasurer has performed, and that you can then go down to the dealership and pick up that car that you've purchased through the set-off bond. Okay, that's in theory. Again, I've tried this in a roundabout way, acquiring it through the VIN number, finding the VIN number and stuff, but I've not actually gone in to get a bill of sale or purchase agreement. Okay, but where I've come to in regards to trying to, again, set off bills and things like this, that we're in the best of the situation we're in due to what Bill Turner said with the trustee dissent tort capacity, right? Which means that we're kind of intermeddling with a trust that we have no rights as trustees to meddle with. And for that's why they don't perform when it comes to, actually performing on these bonds that we've sent in that have been accepted, but they're reluctant to want to perform on them to give away the goose that lays the golden egg. But at the same time, they're also reluctant to want to enforce on any bills that they're obviously trying to come after you for, that you've already A4V'd, referencing the bonds held at the Treasury, who are now agreed to act as your drawee and bank payor in this setup. Okay, so it's like a checkmate situation. It's the best of a bad situation we're in, given controlling the estate whilst the straw man's still in action, until, like I said, we learn to liquidate the estate. Okay, and that's something I had my first pop at doing within the Supreme Court here in Brisbane. And I have got a few other avenues to go back to the drawing board in order to rectify. Through that process, I've learned a lot initially, and why they chucked it out, which I'll probably put another presentation just going through, so I can change tack strategies and have a few other avenues to apply in order to try and ultimately liquidate the estate, which is obviously the main goal, the kind of cherry on top of this movement, that even with, PJP and Patrick Devine had all taught with the Advanced Treasury Pack that was what it was trying to achieve. But again, as I went through that, I found out there was a few shortfalls and shortcomings with the information. That was more what was omitted, right, than what was done, because it was very good practice, very good step up in the level of knowledge in regards to, you know, learning how to issue, control and assign the securities, and with the more advanced security agreement. So it was a necessary kind of step, like any education board with, you know, university. You do these assignments, you put them together, you actually go away and do something, put a document together, and you know, submit it. The advanced Treasury pack was exactly the same. Even though we didn't get any results, the result was a level up in knowledge and learning how to, you know, administer your estate at a higher level, okay, which is elite international creditor level type knowledge, okay. And this is where, once you maneuver yourself with, again, just these simple things, security agreement, right, indemnity bond, set off bond, the world is your oyster. So you've got your security agreement in play, right, everything that's listed in Schedule A appropriately, catch-all, broad cover of all the major assets, property that's going in and out of the account that you're using your strawman to acquire, buy and sell within their commercial arena. You've got your indemnity bond and your set-off bond sent in. The world is your oyster. World is your oyster. You can then claim allodial title for private conveyance. And the other big one is obviously tax exempt status, right? And then you have also your diplomatic status, which goes into the declaration that I sent in, which formulates the acceptance again to be recognized as a diplomat as part of your, you know, sovereign nation state. And then the world really is your oyster. And then you just, from there, it's just learning about the courts, how to crack the courts with the court procedure in order to try and liquidate the estate. Probate court, the Supreme Court has powers to revoke letters of administration and grant probate of a will, etc., etc. Okay, so PPSR real quick, just to end this video presentation. Let's have a look. So let's log in. It's been a while since I've been on here. So let's go to registrations. Let's see what happens. Okay, so if you go to log in, so if I log in, so basically when you log in, you create an account and then you have to create a secure party group, okay, which is basically going to be your strawman. I'm sorry, your born identity, given name, as you can see here, right? And so for the founding name, I just used my birth registration identity number, which is, again, it's just a way of identifying that, okay, this born identity, this individual, myself, with my given name is attached to this entity that was created through the process of registration with the birth forms. Okay, so it's an identifier just helping to differentiate me from other just Alexander Georges that are out there. It's actually linked to the account, this particular straw man, but I'm not the straw man. That's kind of what you're saying with that. So we can go to search PPSR. If we go to amend a registration, right? So here, this is where you renew a registration. I've opted, I think, for 7 years for the main one. So amend the registration. And if we go to, let's go to this one, just to pull it up, just to show you. It's just a matter of backwards engineering it. And like I did, you know, I knew how to do UCC filing. Then when I came to Australia, it wasn't that difficult to work out. Set up your secure party group, which is you as the secure party, the creditor. And then here in Australia, they call debtors grantors. Okay, so slight difference, but again, easy to work out. So your grantor is going to be your straw man and your surname. Okay, so tokens that they're quite finicky with all their different transactions and stuff. So this is the token, I believe, for the same one. Is that the same one? Let's just have a look. 992. Yes, it is. So there's a token. And this is just then used for you to be able to, for security reasons, log in. So no one else can. So you've got those two. Let's have a look. Retrieve. So then, okay, here it is. It pulls up my filing. So here you have the PPSR registration details, registration number, registration change number, registration kind, security interest, dates. Okay, so the end time is 2031. So we're going to make sure that before that date, on the 13th of March 2031, I come back in here and renew this registration. To extend it, you've got to pay some money. It's not that much. It's worth doing, trust me. So it keeps everything live with the security agreement, because this security agreement basically has absolutely no power unless it is perfected on a public security registry, such as the UCC or PPSR. An equivalent, an alternative, could be a national newspaper, a public newspaper, and or just sending out CCing in respondents, certain respondents. okay, as a notification. But just to keep things uniform and conforming to securities law, if you have a PPSR in your nation, use it. If not, internationally UCC is recognized, then you can attach that to whoever you want to notify with your status change, when dealing with these things. So yeah, that's how you can go about doing that. So we have secured party group, again, just showing you name, born identity, given name, past my birth certificate, registration number, operated out of my mailbox address, my emails on there. So the collateral you can see here. So when you go through, actually, you'll have all these subheadings that you have to fill out as you go through the filing. Okay, so when you go here, registration, create registration. First, you've got to create a secure party group, and then you can go and do, create a new registration. And then if you've got all of your identifiers, you only be at this stage once you have done the sending of the security agreement to yourself at your mailbox address, or if you're using a care of address, doesn't really matter. Just make sure keep it all uniform. I use a mailbox address. I think it's so much better. It adds that extra layer of privacy as well. And just make sure the numbers match up. Okay, so you can see here, this is the entry of collateral on behalf of the creditor principal, myself, and of the debtors, in the commercial chamber under necessity, and the following property is hereby registered in the same. All property / collateral pledged under security agreement, registered post, debtor / grantor is a commercial transmitting utility and is a trust. All right, inventory, no, collateral not stated, which is otherwise stated here. Proceeds to be claimed, yes, all present and after acquired property. And there's the grantor details, my surname, said KB Trust, and then Strawman, etc., etc. All right, so that's just proving that it has been filed. That's the information that's on there. If I wish to amend a registration, I can. If I want to create a registration, so if you want to, for instance, if we go back and search again, so we go home, we can search the PPSR. Actually, no, we don't do it like that because you've got to pay. So if we go to registrations, and if you want to amend a registration, again, if we go to this time, if you recollect the set off bond, that I added to the original PPSR registration. So here, all it is a different registration number that I put in. And again, they'll send out via email a different token for that particular registration. So you've got the verification statement that actually has the let's make sure, so 505. So that's slightly different. So if I go back to the PPSR, if we go to the Treasury, there should be a token that was issued. Here we go. That's the 707. I don't think that's the same one. It should be 505, right? Here we go. All this is just extra security measures in order to make sure that you are the secure party and you can gain access to logging in. So this was again for the notice of adding an unlimited set off bond to the original PPSR filing. So this is classified under an earlier registration number. If you recollect, is otherwise, going back to the original, this one here, 992, as you can see, that's what has in the collateral the security agreement. Here, 992, and then this is just adding an unlimited set off bond, unlimited indemnity bond secured against the birth certificate, prepaid limited exemption account, held and assigned to the Australian Treasury and all successors in office for insurance, and set off claims as stipulated in the bond agreements, etc., etc. And this is duration of registration is actually 25 years. The collateral type, is commercial property. Collateral class, financial property investment instruments. All right, and this is all what you'll be selecting as you go through creating a new registration. All right. And then the collateral is subordinated because it's part of an earlier registration number. So it falls under this, but through creating a new registration, it gives it a new number. You're otherwise just adding it to the original preceding filing. And this is then otherwise verified with this earlier PPSR registration number. The registration is linked to an earlier registration. Okay, it's as simple as that. And then all these other ones that I've added, like the excess grantors, again, this was all added to an earlier registration number, but it's assigned under a new registration number. So with the PPSR, anything new that you wish to register, like in regards to adding collateral, like your bonds, and wanting to assign that, or adding even more grantors, as in debtors, okay, as I did here, as you can see, you just simply go to the PPSR registrations, create registration, and there'll be an option for you at some point to reference the original filing, which is what it all goes back to, which is otherwise referencing your security agreement, registered postal number, which is right here. Okay, then obviously it pays to keep it all neat and tidy within your files. I mean, I could probably be a little bit tidier, but you map it in your mind when you go through these folders so many times, right? So just PPSR UCC, I've got one folder for PPSR, Treasuries, obviously all to do with the bonds. These are for other things, and then UCC again, and then the main security agreement is here. I could just put up another folder, make it neat, security agreement. You just keep everything nice and organized, right? And that's will make life a lot easier. Likewise here, vehicle. Okay, this is my BMW 323i, Allodial Title registration. That's what I did when I sent it to myself. Okay, then I put the notice pack together. And this is when I did the original private insurance with the Alliance bond, which I perfected, which obviously had the token issued for in the verification statement, as you can see. Which again, it was kind of superfluous, because if you've got the indemnity bond sent in to the Treasury, that covers insurance anyway. I was just playing around with, I wonder what a private corporation would do with this bond if I issued it to them, right? And then there's a notice pack. It's quite simple. All right, just keep it all nice and neat. And then this is my latest one. Got a Kia Seltos GT line, 2023 model, so relatively new. You know, it's my main car, and everything is kept in the folders. Okay, and then yeah, like I said before, once you have this all set up, you can then print this off, all 33 pages of what you sent out with the proof of postage, shove that in your glove box, obviously put the private plates on there, and away you go. You are free to transit, travel, non-commercial, private, sovereign amongst the roads, dry land absent from the seas. Okay, with proper insurance, your estate is indemnified, and you've done all the right things. You've notified them, you've now got a Allodial title, you've removed it from the bankruptcy. Okay, and then yeah, so you get a lot of freedom from that, but just don't abuse it. All right, and so the only way they can criminally charge you is if you actually do something that is criminal, which is hurt another individual or their property or even state property. Okay, which is fair enough. That's common law. That's all we want. Innocent until proven guilty, and evidence of a loss from an injured party stepping forward in their private capacity with a claim, willing to state a claim upon which relief can be granted. Right? And that's the key. Okay, guys, so I hope that's helped everyone, both in the public and private. Those of you in the public still obviously watching this, like I said before at the beginning, if you sign on to my website, agmiddleditch.com, for a small donation, you can gain access to these templates that I'll share under this video module. Okay, but I like it because it ties in, it pulls together everything that's come before in regards to what is required to get to this level, to start administering this kind of stuff and using these technologies. And from there, like I said, the world really is your oyster. Okay, but that's the bare minimum, right? You need to get all this done, have a good solid understanding of contract law, trust law, securities law, the bankruptcy that we're in, UCC, banking, and then from there, obviously, yeah, the postal road mechanics, and just acting honourably, and yeah, learning how to put pen to paper and assert your terms and conditions in this life, and help remove things out of the bankruptcy and into the private, where you have full legal title. So remember, possession is 9/10 of the law, the other 10th is title. Okay, so until such times you do this, you'll be held under usufruct, which is part of the bankrupt indenture, which is their statutes, acts, codes, regulations, and legislations under the penal code, which is former martial law, admiralty, maritime law, because you don't actually own it. You're using that which has been pledged as collateral to the creditors, and the creditors have stipulated how that should be used. And for the right for you to use that, if you don't abide by those statutes, acts, codes, legislations, then you can be penalised, fined, feed, levied. They can take it up from underneath you, lien it, seize it. And otherwise, the right for you to use that as part of their codes under their bankrupt indenture as an indentured slave, you have to pay tax. And tax is otherwise just rent for you to have the right to use the thing that you think you own, but you don't, because you haven't got a allodial title. You are a colourable title owner, deed of title, registered keeper. And so if you don't like that, get educated, go through this process. Don't wait for them to change the system. Be the change you wish to see and take back control, because at the end of the day, all the governments are, all this system is just pieces of paper floating across space with the postal roads. Mere ink on paper. Okay, and as Bill Turner rightly said, the worst thing you can get from these pieces of paper is a paper cut. And yet people get so in over their heads in stress because they're not doing the right things first. They're not getting educated. They're following charlatan educators out there. They're not going back to basics and learning what waters we're swimming in, and get your account, your estate set up first and foremost. And then from there, the world is your oyster. All right. And I've heard arguments of people saying, oh, you can't meddle the flesh with the fiction. Well, what happens with this very system when you're stepping up and using your birth certificate to go open up a bank account, and you're receiving that bank card, and you're going to an employer and he's sending letters to you and you're filling out forms on behalf of the strawman? What's happening? You're acting as surety for the fiction. So there obviously is stipulations and allowance for that within their own system that has contracted you and dragged you underwater into their maritime admiralty system. People really, it's so interesting how many interesting questions I get, let's put it that way, of people just not really working it out, you know? And so the flesh, of course, can intermeddle with the fiction. That's what's going on. That's how people are being dragged underwater as surety, and they're using the strawman vessel to drag them underwater, drag them over into a completely different jurisdiction. And so the reverse happens the same with the security agreement. You can, on behalf of the strawman, contract with it, but as a secure party creditor, far better than a surety. Trust me, you'd rather be a secure party creditor than a surety every single day of the week within this current bankrupt commercial UCC run system, maritime admiralty law disguised as statutory jurisdiction. And so the reverse is true. We can intermeddle the flesh with the deceased. How else can you play a board game of Monopoly if you haven't got a token piece on that board? You are not that token piece. We all know that. At the end of the day, whoever wins, the board gets packed away and everything's reset. And we all go home not having to pay the debt that was otherwise implemented on the board within the rules of the game. This whole world is no different with the current setup with this strawman, which is our token piece on the Monopoly board game. It's just that it's much better that if we're positioned as the banker and we have the ability to create our own credit by issuing our own bonds and having a little bit more protection when playing the game, and moving our token piece, that every time we step outside the front door, right, we push our straw man ahead of us. That is our interface. That is our transmitting utility. And when you have all this set up, you are protected. A secure party creditor, principal, sovereign, beneficiary, son and daughter of the living, sovereign, true creator, postmaster general, etc., etc. List goes on. You want to be a registrar general, issuing a allodial title? Happy days. We can be that too. Why not? Whatever they can be, whatever they can do, we can do it, and do it even better, because we have the ability to bring everything back into the private common law of the land through this process, through silent acquiescent admission. Okay, so very, very powerful. All right, folks. I hope that helps. I think I'll do another video going over my court case and my thoughts and strategies going forward with that, and also the tax exempt status, which again reveals a lot. So yeah, go out there, get everything set up with your estate, and go and reclaim allodial title to your private vehicle. There's no excuses. I've done it. I've tested it in 2 different nation states now, and I've had absolutely 0 problems or hassles whatsoever. And I know that if I end up in an accident, I know, because I have the knowledge, what I will do to rely on these bonds as insurance, because I know that these bonds work. Because if you recollect, again, just those who obviously maybe have not seen yet, I'll bring it back into awareness, is the car insurance case where it otherwise proved to me that these bonds work. Okay, and again, look, here is the original verbiage that I've adapted in these other bonds, the most recent advanced technologies, and you can see I was super wet behind the ears. What is it? I guess when you say this by order of, okay, that is technically signing on behalf of another entity showing the separation, okay, but I was coming in again as my lower cap name, thinking that was separating me from the fiction. It wasn't. But it just goes to show that, you know, a lot of this is nuanced, it's trivial. What matters most is, again, the core, what's being said in these documents. Okay, as secured party creditor and sovereign, I hereby issue a surety bond to the value of £1 million sterling as security to settle any claim of liability in the event of an incident requiring compensation from another living soul. Please find the surety bond and terms and conditions attached for your record and safekeeping. Due to the very fact that securities have now replaced substance as collateral for debt due to the bankruptcy of the United Kingdom Corporation to the IMF, including all subsidiaries and government in their private corporate capacity, and there is no money in circulation of any value in which to pay, only debt, and all debt is created on paper. Therefore, all debt can be discharged and issued on paper. I exercise my right and unlimited exemption to use this negotiable instrument to ensure that secured party to my strawman, should be my born identity, right? And any and all personal vehicles owned by my born identity, myself, involved in any incident is hereby covered by this bond to the value of £1 million sterling. Okay, you agree that the copy of the bond is proof of insurance unless explicitly stated otherwise. Silence is acquiescence. Yours sincerely, without ill will, vexation, or frivolity. Okay, there's the bond. So wet behind the ears. There's a lot of errors in here. Okay, but you can even see here, I just signed 3 different variations of my name. It's quite funny. They don't really care about that. It's just what is being said here and what is being said here. And how are you, when I sent that, it was proof of postage, which I do have in another file. But ultimately, the story goes, they issued a hort, okay, which, guy pulled me over with the cop car because I cancelled my insurance, showed that I had no insurance. And so I went into the police station. He couldn't touch me because obviously I pulled out this documentation saying, hey, look, no, I've actually sent this into the Treasury. Here's proof. Had that in the glove box. He couldn't touch it because otherwise he would have seized it and I wouldn't be able to drive that car around. So he issued a hort, which meant that within 2 weeks I had to go into the police station to resolve this issue, provide the documents and proof. I did. They were still scratching their heads and they just said, look, leave the documents with us. I was trying to explain to them the setup. They had no idea. Walked out there scot-free. Then about 2 weeks later, I got this through the post, but they obviously tried to fine me and penalty points and fine $300, £300. And so I wrote back to them and contested it. In other words, brought them up to speed as to, hey, look, I've got this bond that I actually sent in, okay, with this registered postal number or this reference number, etc. Okay, on this date. And that I have actually got insurance. Then about, I think, 2 weeks passed and I got back confirmation that with reference to your previous communication regarding the above offence, the offence has been reviewed and I write to confirm that the fixed penalty noted above has been cancelled. Okay, so that's when I knew these bonds work. Okay, that's when I absolutely knew these bonds do work. And so whenever I get into an accident, I know what to do. It's as simple as that. I know to obviously gain all the details relating to the injured party, assess the damage, and get a bill, and then invoke the powers of the Treasury to settle that bill, who has the right of subrogation to act as my insurer. And so the private insurer of the other individual, say for instance, who's looking to settle the bill based on the accident, would have to be corresponding with the treasurer in that instance. And so if litigation ensued and I submit these bonds, I know based off of this bond insurance case, when obviously after sending the letters, it got in the hands of the solicitors and they knew exactly what I was doing. They knew they couldn't touch me because I did have insurance. You know what I mean? It's like, I was quite surprised they actually did that because it revealed so much of the game. And just that one paragraph here revealed so much. And like I said, people overcomplicate the system we're in. And I've been blessed and graced with being able to find the very simple remedy very early on. And from that, being led every step of the way into the right individuals, the right teachers, and the right amount of information in order to level up and perfect and refine these technologies. Okay, and it's certainly by no means the end for me, just getting warmed up. But that's, like I said, bare minimum, this is what you have to get established, guys. All right. And then once you have all this set up and you've got immaculate records, it's just rinse and repeat. Like I've done it, this is the third time now I've done it with the vehicle, very easy. Once you get familiarized with the PPSR, very easy. Security agreement, once you do it at the UCC, again, very easy. It's just rinse and repeat. Just making sure that things are renewed, things are reflecting, you're acting honourable, keeping record of everything. And like I said, this will go now into the glove box where I'm driving around. As long as I don't have any protest by any of these guys within 14 days of me sending this out, good to go. Good to go. All right, folks. So hope you found that educational. And for those of you still in the public, feel free to head over to my website, agmiddleditch.com, where you can jump on board for a very small donation. Obviously, it's capped. It's uncapped potential on the upside. Go to law. Okay, but the minimum is just, covering the web server fee, the platform for me to host this actual educational platform. So it's about £250 a month. That's all that's going towards. So each and every one who signs up, who donates a minimum of 50 quid, helps to contribute to keeping this platform running where people can access the templates and more knowledge in regards to their freedoms and get up to speed with the kind of things that I'm doing and implementing, which is very freeing, and embodying the knowledge and learning how to do this off the back of my hand based on everything that I've put together and studied over the last 5 years now on this journey. Okay, so thanks for listening, guys. Again, thanks always for your support, and I hope you stay safe out there. As always, stay sovereign, study hard, and have a little bit of fun, and go ahead and claim Allodial Title to your private conveyance once you have everything set up as we've gone through. All right, guys, all the best. Stay blessed.